Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, if you've been watching the channel, we've been doing a lot of detailed videos on this ST70 kit build, and several folks have requested that I go really slow, that I do it very detailed, show soldering and as much as I can without just being ridiculous, 37 videos. And then I got other people, obviously, that think this is boring or don't watch it because these videos don't get a lot of views on the channel, but I do think they're an important part of what I do here at Skokie Designs, is help folks go into this whole DIY world of tube audio. And I know Mark over Blue Glow was really what got me inspired to dive into this, and hopefully I'm doing the same for you. So we still got a little bit to go on here. I got the circuit board here almost done. I got my tube sockets came in. I got a couple other little parts I'm waiting on, so it might be midweek. And the weather here in Atlanta, there's been like some snow and stuff in the southeast, and so I think that slowed down some deliveries. But anyway, hopefully we'll have this still done by the end of the month. That's my goal. And then we can do a test on the old versus the new. And yeah, I've been listening to the old one that I restored, and I really like the way it sounds. These are really good sounding amps, and I think are a killer value for the money. And you've probably seen me do some mods to this thing, and I understand the folks that sell these things were really trying to adhere to the whole classic vibe of this thing. And it is kind of a piece of hi-fi history that's been in production for a long time. And so that's really cool. But we have done some modern updates to it, and yeah, hopefully you follow along and see some of those. The main ones were changing how we did the power cord and the way we're changing the grounding on the output tubes. Those are the two really big ones. But anyway, I want to talk about another thing that is kind of historical, and I've been trying to understand why I really love a lot of that Blue Note era music that was recorded in like the late 50s up to the mid to late 60s. And, what is so different about them? And a couple of things that have come to my attention from looking at videos of some other folks that do actually studio recording. They're, run studios and have worked through the era from the, 8 and 16 track tape decks up to doing everything modern on the computer, and them talking about, the differences in the way music's recorded and what we're hearing. And a point that he made that I thought was really interesting, and I'll link the video below, it's worth watching, but he was talking about how, like this Pro Tools or whatever this software they use in the studio, let's take the drum track. They record the drummer playing, and it may be one of those, electronic drum things that's got some plug-in for the different drums, or it may be actual drums. But when they import it into like the timeline, and to me it looks a lot like, I think they call it the non-destructive timeline that a video editing has, is, it's got intervals set up, and you can set like the beat, like 4/4 time, and I'm not a musician, so yeah, may say some of this kind of crazy, but anyway, he was showing how there's like vertical lines in the timing, and like they lay the drum track on, and if one of the drum beats or a couple of the drum beats are, just slightly off, they hit a button and they snap to the grid, so they're perfectly in time. And then, because everybody wants there to be no mistakes, and then it's just like they, auto-tune voices now. And, there's some singers that can, absolutely sing without auto-tune. But there's so many that feel like that in this digital age, they'll be criticized if their voice isn't perfect pitch. And so they auto-tune it and dial it into the exact pitch that it needs to be. Same thing on like the guitar riffs and stuff. And having the electronic versions of it, they can just do take after take after take, and it's like, try again, try again, try again. And because they're trying to, like, time is money, especially if you're renting studio time, they try to like rip these things off as quick as possible, and there's no break between the takes. And I know sometimes with other things in life, sometimes if you just walk away from something for a minute and come back, you're fresh, reset, and you can nail it. But there's none of that anymore. And again, they're trying to like nail everything down, and then they, lay down the drums first, then they lay down the guitar, and then they lay down, the bass, and then they come back and put the vocals on top of all of that. And so the drummer never hears the music. And then maybe the bass guitar never hears the lead guitar. And so the musicians aren't really, getting energy off each other, especially if you're in the earlier parts of this multi-track layup thing. And there's just not the energy that a band has playing with each other, when they can look at each other and they can really see that, you see one of the musicians really getting jamming, and then you start jamming, and, it's why live music is so awesome. But recorded music's not done that way, or it's not done that way anymore, and I feel like that's why a lot of it sounds so sterile, and why a lot of it just sounds the same. I mean, if you're using the same drum machine plugins that some other band is using, the drums are going to sound the same. And if they're all laid on the, lines, the timeline, they all snap the grid, just like the other guy is, they are all going to sound the same. And I think that a lot of the earlier recordings that were done in analog, especially when they were using tape, was you couldn't just like do punch in after punch in. I mean, you had to like rewind, find the spot, stop the tape, and then get ready to punch it in if you were going to fix a spot. And it was such a pain in the butt. You wouldn't do it unless there was just a total F up. I mean, if there was just a minor little offbeat something, that was just part of the music. And you can hear that in older recorded music. You can hear the little mistakes, and you can hear the little that didn't come right in on time. And there's nothing wrong with that. It shouldn't be perfect. And if you watch my channel much, you know I love analogies. To me, it reminds me of when photography went from film to digital. With film, especially if you're shooting large format, like a 4x5 camera or something like that, you had one shot at it. I mean, you only had maybe 6 plates of film for the camera for the day, which would have 2 shots on each one, so you had 12 shots for the whole day. And so you didn't pull the trigger unless you had it really composed well, and you had everything, you'd wait for the lighting to be right. You'd wait for the clouds, because you couldn't go back in and Photoshop the clouds if you didn't like them, or if there were people in the frame that you didn't want there, you'd have to wait for them to leave or whatever. And it was more organic, I feel like. And then once digital came, man, you just click, 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 point around, click, click, click. You get home, you got 500 pictures on the memory card, and then you go through them trying to find like the good shots. And you might have a 1% keeper rate. You might get that same 12 shots out of 500 or 1,000 frames. And it just didn't have the same feel to it, because then you're like, well, I can just Photoshop that. And that's what we end up with. And I just feel like there's something missing. There's the humanity of it, and just the small mistakes are what made it real. And I think that's why I really like that earlier music, that it was recorded with the whole band in the room. And they were playing together. And yeah, you can hear somebody shuffling their feet, or you can hear, stuff going on in the room. You might hear some drinks clicking, the glasses clinking and stuff, and all that. And that's what made it cool, was that it wasn't perfect. So another thing we're going to get into soon, which I don't want to get into on this video, but I want to do a video about these mono releases of some of these early jazz recordings, and then what a mono phono cartridge sounds like. Because I dove down that rabbit hole, and it's a really cool one. So we'll get into that soon, but I just wanted to share this thing that I really thought about with music recording, and how these studio mixes, with these multi-track things on digital, where they're, auto-tuning and auto-correcting, and, oh, that one guitar note was off a little bit. It's like, maybe that's what made it cool. And fixing that wasn't really a fix. And he was even talking about, he was looking at some of his earlier music and recordings that he'd done on tape. And he was saying, he was looking at it on the computer. And he said, yeah, if I was doing that in Pro Tools now, I would have fixed those two notes. He said, but did they need fixing? Or would that have been a mistake? But today I would just fix it out of habit. And I think that's a lot of, again, why I like some of these earlier jazz recordings so much. And we're starting to get back to that. Kevin Gray set up a studio on his Coherent Audio label, and I think he's got 2 albums. I bought the first one. I need to get a copy of the second one, and it just sounds glorious. And to me, we're back to that age of, we're hearing the room. We're hearing the whole ambiance of being there that's missing in a lot of these multi-track recordings. So, anyway, that's kind of it. Don't have a lot of things going on other than I'm trying to get these phono stages. I'm still waiting on the powder coated guy, waiting on a couple of parts for this ST70, and then I've got a phono stage I want to review soon that I got from Fozzy. Listen to it a little bit. I just want to, give a little more time with it so I really understand what I'm hearing. And then there's, of course, the backlog of projects that we're going to be working on. So that's kind of it for this Monday. Do have some music for today that is related to what we were just talking about. One of them is, and I should have had this a long time ago, this is Jimmy Smith, the incredible Jimmy Smith, at Back of the Chicken Shack. And guys, this is such a fun album. I'm sure it's on streaming. This Blue Note vinyl is the bomb. And this is a stereo version, so you don't have to get anything special for it to really be great. But just the album cover's so fun. And anybody that has a dog that cool, right? Got to listen to their music. But he's on a Hammond B3, I guess it is. And a lot of times I don't like that kind of organ, but this really works. And he's got Kenny Burrell's playing on it. Got Stanley Turrentine. Hadn't heard of him. Probably should have, but lots of famous people. And Rudy said that anytime he could get Jimmy Smith in the studio, he was ready to record him because he just really thought he was a genius, and I think he is too. So just the name of it's fun. Back of the Chicken Shack, right? Take a listen to this. Okay, the next one, though, is a very unique thing. And this is Claire Teal, and it's a tribute to Ella Fitzgerald. And let me refresh it's chasingthedragon.co.uk. I'll put the link below. And this is a direct cut recording. And what that means is they had the disc cutting lathe hooked up to the mixing board, and then the microphones and stuff hooked up to that. And while they were recording, the vinyl master was being cut. And you can tell it when you listen to it. Yes, it's got some imperfections in the mixing. And there's times when like the horns just kind of overpower the vocals. But you know what? If you were sitting in the club, the same thing would happen. And between the passages or between the songs, you can hear them like turn their sheet music and stuff. And they had one shot. They didn't have like multi-takes. There was no cutting in. You screw up, it ruins the whole thing, and you got to start completely over. And I think that puts pressure, like a live performance, on the performers where they really perform their best because they know they can't screw up. It's just like live TV. You can't go back and redo it. And so this was hard to find. It's out of press. You know, they pressed all the ones I think they were going to press. So I had to get it off Discogs. And it wasn't cheap. But yeah, for you vinyl heads, hunt this down. This is really cool stuff. Not sure if it's available streaming or not. It may be. They may have put it on a CD. I'm not sure. But you know me, the vinyl's going to blow all that away. So anyway, this is some really cool stuff. Her voice is just unbelievable. And just, it's like big band that sounds like you're in the room. So yeah, that's my second recommendation for the week. So anyway, that's kind of it for this week. Hopefully you're enjoying my content. If you are, please sub to the channel. Please like the video. Come on, guys, hit the like button. It's not that hard to do. If you like, people say you like the Money Monologue. Let's see some more likes. We're about 17.5K subs, so that's rolling right along this year. I feel good about, you know, getting my stuff into production. I've got the parts ordered for my 300B prototype that we're going to be doing on the channel, which is very similar to my other one, but this time we're going to be doing much nicer parts and a much nicer build. So I'll show you how to do one of those if you want to, or they will be for sale. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. Until next week for the next Monday Monologue.